Hey everyone, welcome to Scale Your Freelancing podcast. This is your host, Satya, and today I'm in conversation with Susan Elizabeth from Operations Made Easy. And I'm so excited to have her on the podcast because she started her business as an online business manager herself, but she's now started to grow a team and turn into an agency that can provide online business management services to her clients. So I'm super excited to interview Susan today and learn about her journey. So, Susan, welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Same, thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's just start at the top, right? How did you get into this whole online business kind of or online business management space? How did you fall into this industry?
Yeah, it's funny stories that it all happened by accident, as I
Hmm.
think it does for most of us.
Right.
I worked in higher education and I became pregnant, became a mom,
Hmm.
and after the first year of being a mommy, I realized I couldn't do the whole corporate America, being stuck in traffic, not seeing my baby, all that good stuff. So I
Right.
started researching online, like, what in the world can I do where I can still make money but work from home? And then I
Right.
found on a blog that talks about virtual assistant, and I had no idea about this online space. I didn't know what a virtual assistant was, so went down a rabbit hole of reading and researching, and it all happened so quickly. I read about it. A month later, I signed up for an online course. A month later, I got my first client, and I started off as a tech virtual assistant. And then I found out maybe about a month later what an online business manager was. And I said, that is what I'm supposed to do. That is my zone. I love planning. I love project management. I am a freak when it comes to organizing and being efficient, all that good stuff. Signed up for the certification course maybe a month later and like quit my job the month after.
Amazing. So like within like 6 months, you just went from having a job to like having your own business.
Yes.
Fantastic. I like that so much. That's awesome. And so how long ago was that? How long has it been since you started your business?
So all of this happened exactly 2 years ago when I started researching. Gained my first client in March of 2019, and I was an OBM by July of 2019.
Wow, amazing. So yeah, so you've not really been in business that long then. And you mentioned in your, when we were chatting before that you already have a six-figure business. That's awesome.
Yes, amazing. I'm like, what, six figures? I've never made that kind of money in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can imagine. So what was that journey like for you? Like and when you were, from when you started your business as an online business manager, as a virtual assistant to get to that point where you could scale to six figures, like what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I just, you know, by doing the research and all that good stuff and just watching other people's journeys, I quickly realized that I was not going to be able to go where I wanted to without the help of a coach. I knew that I realized that early on. I've heard stories about people saying, I wish I would have hired a coach early on, all that good stuff. So after I did the OBM certification in the summer of 2019, um, I hired my first coach maybe a few months later and started working with her right away and just defining my niche, who I wanted to serve, what I wanted my business to look like, all that good stuff. So signing up for a coach early on in my, in my transition was the integral and essential part of me growing and being able to scale the way that I have been so quickly.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that like that piece right there is what turned everything around. And just continuing to invest in myself. As that saying goes, you gotta spend money to make money. You
Yeah.
definitely do. Was it scary? Absolutely, because I
Yeah.
have a child, I have a mortgage, I have a car. Like, spending this money on my business and invest in myself was scary, but I knew that if I wanted to grow it quickly, I'd rather do this at the beginning. So yeah, definitely hiring the coach within the first year of starting my business was key.
Yeah, no, that is such a good point because I feel like that was my journey too. Like, I feel like when I first started my business, I was taking a lot of online courses. So it was a little bit different to yours. Like, I didn't work with like a private coach right away. I took a lot of online courses to like upskill and learn about how other people are doing this. But same, like for me as well, like the only reason why I could hit six figures within the first year was because I was willing to invest in my business early on, even before my business gave me any evidence that it would be successful or whatever. And yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because they think, oh no, I'm just gonna bootstrap it and do it myself. And like, I don't really need a coach, and like I just need to do more. Like there's this kind of mentality that like I just need to do more of what I'm already doing. And magically one day things will just start working and money will pour out of the sky and I'll be, I'll be super happy forever, right? There's a bit of that misconception, but it's so true though. Like the more you're willing to invest in your business and the earlier you do it, the better, because otherwise you're just wasting all this time trying to figure it out on your own, and you kind of limited by your own knowledge, right? You're limited by what you don't know that you don't know.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree. I didn't know what I was doing. All of this was new to me, and I knew that I needed guidance, and um I knew that I needed to have a coach that has already walked the walk and been through my shoes per se.
Yeah.
So that was also important to me in choosing a coach that I knew, would benefit me in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that a lot. So I'm curious, as and a lot, I want to talk about this because a lot of our the folks who are listening to this podcast are freelancers as well. So I'm curious, like in your experience, and because you're like an operations specialist as well, were there some systems that you set up for your own business that allowed you to scale faster?
Yes, client onboarding for sure. That was one of the first systems that you know what? It's funny because I still redefine it every so often to improve it, but definitely the client onboarding system and process is one of the first things that I did set up, because I knew that doing it manually over and over again was going to take time. There are some manual pieces, but for the most part, it's pretty much automated. So that was integral in doing that very early on, was setting up the client onboarding workflow.
Okay, awesome. And if, in terms of like the folks that are listening to this podcast, right? If people are sitting there wondering, like, okay, what systems should I tackle first? Like, what would your like tip be, or like your top three things that they should tackle first to ensure that their business keeps growing? And I want to use your expertise as a systems
Yeah,
person to share with
um,
the humans.
one I would definitely say is not even necessarily a process workflow, is capturing them. I work with so many entrepreneurs that when I ask them, do you have systems or processes in place? Most of the time, the response is no. But little do they know they have it. It's just in their head.
Right.
Um, so I would say one of the first things, if you are, whether you are established or just starting out, start capturing those systems, record it. So as you are performing a task, turn on your Loom or Zoom or whatever, whatever recording tool you use, and start recording yourself on the computer as you're performing that task. That way, when you are hiring or training someone who's going to take over that task, you can simply hand over that video to them and they can follow your instructions there. Um, so creating a library resource of your tasks as you perform them is definitely one of the first things I would say to do. Um, and then your back office, for me, it's G Suite. So setting up my G Suite was very important because I come into clients' businesses, and when I see their G Suite, the background, it is a hot mess.
Yeah.
There's files everywhere,
I
documents
confess.
everywhere.
I confess that that's the case with me as well.
Nothing is organized. They don't know where, this document is or that document is. And that's fine. So if you already have, that in the back and nothing's organized, I say start fresh. Create a brand new folder, name it with the name of your company, and start as you are looking for forms and you find them. Oh, I found it. Perfect. Put it in that folder. Start gather, but definitely, create that one hub folder for your company, and then within that folder, create subfolders for the different department, if you will, for your company. So have a marketing folder in there, have a customer service folder in there, have a client folder in there, have a operational folder in there, and then start putting your documents in there as you find them or start creating them. That's two. So definitely capturing the systems out of your head, organizing your back office. And then for me, again, it was just client onboarding, especially if you work with one-on-one clients. I
Yeah.
think those would be my top three.
Yeah, no, I love that so much because I mean, honestly, it's true though. Like I had this incident in my business a few years ago or maybe last year. I don't remember. So I was actually, actually no, this was definitely a few years ago. So what had happened was I used to have long ago, I used to have a, blah 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 at gmail.com kind of email address that I used to use for my client work. And I kind of graduated from that, like at least I think in 2017 was like the last year that I did that. In 2017 I kind of moved on to my own my own domain, right?
Yeah.
So I started my business in 2016, I moved on to my own domain in 2017. So before that I had this absolutely fantastic document that I used to, it was like a template that I used to walk my clients through, and they would get amazing results in terms of getting their brand messaging together. Now, this template was saved in that Google Drive, right? And at some point, I actually shut down that Google account and deleted everything, right? Deleted everything from that. And then last year, I was like, oh my God, there's that incredible document that I want to find. And I was like horrified. I was like, holy shit, did I delete it? Like, are you kidding me? Like, that was so good. It was like, literally, it was like a 35-page document. It was like fantastic, right? And I was like, shit, 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 shit. I was like having like a freak out moment. And I was like, please, God, let me have downloaded it at some point. And
Oh
thankfully, I
no.
had downloaded it at some point.
Oh,
So, so I did get it. But I mean, yeah, when I hear you talking about this, I'm like, yep, it totally makes sense to like organize your files properly, because if you don't, then
I
situations
lose
like
it.
absolutely happen. Even if you're like moving domains and you delete a domain or something, yeah, like my conclusion is like make sure you have like 50,000 backups before you delete a domain on like G Suite, or like get rid of the files from a domain or from an email address, because yeah, you might lose something that's like literal gold. And I'm not kidding, like the 20 minutes that I was searching for, it's like my heart was pounding through my chest, and I was like, I was like, I can't believe you lost it, Satya, are you kidding me? Like, that was such a good document. And then I found it, and then I ended up using it for a bunch of clients as well, and I was like, phew. Like,
Yeah. Sigh of relief. Yeah, definitely back them up. And it also makes it just easier to transfer
yeah.
documents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's one of those things like when your entire business is online, that's good news and bad news, right? It's like good news is you can, like, whatever, if you want to change laptops or whatever, you can do it really easy. The bad news is if it gets deleted from that one source, then you're fucked. Like, you're not,
It's gone.
yeah, it's gone forever. Yeah. And also, I mean, now with G Suite, they have this new thing, right? Where if you leave a document in trash for like 30 days, it automatically gets deleted and that kind of stuff. So yeah, like, it makes sense to have a backup of everything, even if you're like deleting it, or just have like a trash folder on your G Suite where you put stuff, but it doesn't get deleted like forever. So yeah. Oh man, crazy how those anecdotes like absolutely stand out when you have conversations like this.
Yes. Yeah. Most of my clients don't even realize that their Google should be much more organized than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like until you mentioned it today, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a good idea.
You're gonna go after this and start organizing.
Yeah, like just actually this last week, funnily enough, I realized I had so many like client work folders on my Google Drive that like it was just everywhere. So I was like, okay, I need to move all of this, like all like my clients from 2017, 2018. So I actually created a folder which says like old client work, and I just kind of move all my old client work in there, so that then
Yep.
it's there on the cloud, but it's just not cluttering up my space. But
Exactly. That's what I do. Yep. I have an archive folder, and everything that I'm not using, it just goes into that archive folder.
yeah, that's such a good point, though. That's really super, super clever. And just to be honest, I think one of the beauties of hiring like an OBM for your company and would be that there's all these little things that can be optimized. You don't have the time to optimize, right? As a business owner. So yeah, like I feel like what you're doing is just so important, because yeah, there are a million things that could be done better. And it's like, it's like one of those things like when you have a dirty closet, you're like, oh yeah, it's just a dirty closet. And then you hire like an organizer to come in and clean your closet, and you're like, holy shit, it looks so good. It's like,
Yes, where were you? Yes, it makes all the difference in the world when you don't even realize it until it's done. Like, oh my God, why didn't I do this myself?
yeah,
But your
yeah,
brain doesn't work like that. And I think that's the beauty of like having someone like an OBM is that our brains work so differently from the visionary of their business owner. Like my clients, what they do, I would never be able to do what they do. My
right.
brain just does not function like theirs,
Yeah,
where their brains don't function like mine. They're telling me their ideas. I'm like, oh, I have like I'm already brainstorming on like how we can bring it to life, what systems need to be created, what SOPs need to be created. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't worry, like this is my zone. You stay in your zone.
yeah. So in your with your clients, and honestly, I'm like right now just listening to you talk. I'm like, do I need to hire you? Because you sound awesome. So maybe we need to have a conversation about that offline. But in terms with your clients, right? Typically, do you work with people who already have teams, or do you work with solopreneurs as well?
So we tend to work with people who have teams just because we're the managers, not necessarily the implementers or the doers per se. So at least a virtual assistant. That way, when we are creating systems or anything like that, someone actually has to be able to do the task. And
Got it.
we don't want that person to be the business owner.
Got it.
So typically, yeah, there's like a few very rare instances where I've come into where it was just the business owner and I came in. But that's like very, very rare. Typically, I would love to see at least a virtual assistant that can actually carry out the actual tasks.
Got it. Okay, so you're basically more like the project management slash systems company, and you just help people put the systems in place so that everybody else can execute it more efficiently.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, I love that. And what do you think is like one of the biggest mindset blocks around people before they hire like OBMs, right? Because I feel like, as with most things in life, the things that actually stop you are not the practical things, it's actually the mindset things. So I'm curious, like, what are the mindset blocks that you typically notice amongst people when they are thinking about hiring an OBM?
Good question. I think that well, it actually happens after they hire. And I would say right now, from my experience, it's kind of been 50-50. One of the mindset blocks that some of the clients I've experienced is letting go. They are
Mm,
afraid to let go of either specific tasks because they think no one can do it as good as they can. Two, they don't want to have to train someone because everything is in their head.
yeah,
And trust because you are handing over the back end to me and my team, and you are trusting us to, you know, take over the operational stuff. And the business owner has been the one doing it all by themselves. So it's like, can I really trust these women to operate the same way that I operate? So letting go and trust is definitely, I think, the biggest mindset. But with that, what I love to tell my new clients is that we're going to date first
yeah,
before we actually commit to one another. So
yeah,
during the first 90 days, like you're going to see how we're working. We're going to get to know the business inside and out. It's going to feel like a lot of work up front, just like any, dating relationship.
yeah.
Um, and then after the 90 days, I would hope that you can see you can trust us with your business. We are here to make things better. And then we can commit to one another and actually get married.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And I feel like this is something that everybody needs to know about hiring anyone, really. Like, if possible, if you are in that kind of, especially in relationships which are more long term, right? Like relationships where you might potentially work together for like 6 months or a year or whatever.
Mhm.
That's so important to just have that dating period up front, because I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make around hiring is that they just go too deep too fast, and then they're like, oh shit, that was a disaster. And like, so it's like, instead of being like, actually let's just go easy, let's just treat the first 90 days like as a probation period, let's see how it goes and then do that. But I also loved what you said about trust, because it's true though. Like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs like and visionaries, they are obviously capable, right? They're capable, that's why their business is doing well to a certain extent. So they're capable and they know what they're doing. But often that kind of becomes a handicap after they've gone past that $250,000 mark in their business, because you can't create $1 million business flying solo. Like it's just not a thing. It's not a thing that you can run $1 million business flying solo, because it's, I mean, yes, it might happen in like, in 1 in a million scenario, but in that 1 in a million scenario, you're fucking exhausted and you don't have a life. And it's
No.
like, yeah, exactly. So it's like, if that's not what you want, then yeah, like hiring is the only choice you have. And then of course, there's that challenge of like trusting someone and letting go and all of that. So yeah, definitely get that. And I feel like that's definitely been my experience as well. It's definitely scary. Like it's so
It
scary to
is.
hire people. You're like, like, I don't know what
It
they're gonna do.
is. It is. No, I get it, because some people have been burned in the past, or they've had bad experiences, but as you said, it takes time, and don't jump in too quickly.
Yeah.
And get to know how you work, and that's why I think it is important to have a slow hiring process as well. Don't just hire the first person that sounds good to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's something that we really have to be conscious of as well, because that was definitely one of my learnings too. And I just hired two people on my team today, and I was like sharing about it in the same group that we are in and stuff like that. And I ended up actually hiring someone that has been a client of mine in the past, because for that exact reason, because I was like, oh, there's a bit of like that shared. I know how she works. I know who she is. She's been around my business. She's been my client. She understands why my program is amazing. And the best part is she's really passionate about it, because she's kind of gone through my program and she knows how it's changed her life. So that's the part where it gets really interesting, because she's gone through this experience with me and she knows that it's been a life-changing program for her. So having her on my team is just kind of like, it's obviously a testament to the fact that we did a good job in the first place, but then also I still made her go through the whole Clifton Strengths assessment.
Yes, I love that test.
Yeah, me too. I've been making all my
Me
potential
too.
hires go through it, and they're all like, do I really need to spend an hour on this, Satya? I'm like, yes. Like, yes,
Yes.
you do.
It is so important. Yes, I've done the same thing. For OBMs, it's either that one or the Kobe. The Kobe says a lot about us too. So
Yeah.
those are the two assessments that I like for
Yeah.
my team to take.
Yeah, so I've been trying out the Clifton Strengths. I've not tried Kobe yet, but I don't think I've taken Kobe myself either. But yeah, it's just so important to kind of bring both of those together. Like having a shared history and all of that is great, but like you also want to make sure that if they might have or that they do have some complementary skill sets that they can bring to the table for you, so that you don't end up hiring the wrong person. But also, I think one of the things that Rachel Rogers talks about, which I love, and she talked about this in like I think there was the one of the VIP days thing that she had like a few months ago, where she mentioned this, where she says, you don't like any kind of hiring relationship that you get into is kind of trial and error, right? You're
Yeah.
just going into it with trial and error. Like, are you going to work together for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? You don't know. And
Yeah.
that's totally fine. Like, as long as even if she's like, even if you have to fire them in 30 days, that's okay. But like, that doesn't mean that you don't hire ever. And this one quote that she said that really stuck with me was, just because the last hire did not work out doesn't mean that hiring was a mistake, in and of itself.
Yep.
Because
I 100% agree. It's a lesson learned.
it's a lesson learned. Absolutely, it's a lesson learned, because for a lot of people, what they way they think about it is, I tried to hire someone, it didn't work out, so I'm never going to hire again. Like, that's not the right way to think about it. It's like, that's like saying, I dated one guy and it didn't work out, so I'm never gonna date again, right? Dating is a bad idea. Like, we don't do that.
Exactly. No, yeah, I 100% agree. It's a lesson learned. That way, when you do decide to hire again, you know what not to do or
Yeah,
what to do.
what to do, what not to do. Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. Yeah. So in 2021, what are your big plans in 2021? What are you aiming towards? What's going on in your world? Tell us more.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, my team has grown. In 2020, it happened. It happened so rapidly, truth be told. And this time last year, it was just me by myself in my business. In August, I hired a subcontractor OBM. A month later, I hired a tech VA. And right before the holidays, I hired another subcontractor OBM. So we are a team of four now.
Nice. Very
Yay.
cool.
For this year, I want to continue growing, where possibly hire one more subcontractor OBM. That way we can serve more women in their back end of their business. So yeah, just continuing to grow my agency, being able to make an impact on our clients' businesses so they can elevate and scale and all that good stuff. And just continuing on learning. I can never perfect my craft, but I can always continue learning and make an impact on my team. So, for me as the business owner and the CEO, I am, still learning, still taking online courses, and at the same time, just continue growing my team. And like I said, just serving as many women as we can.
Amazing. I love that. I love that a lot. And for people who are listening to this episode right now, what would be the number one tip that you would like to give them? Like the number one thing if they had to take away from this episode, what do you want them to remember as they walk away from listening to this show?
I would say that invest in yourself, honestly.
Yeah.
If you want to get to a certain point in your business, it's going to take the investment. Because had I not invested it early, I will probably still be scrambling and trying to figure things out on my own that I just don't know how to do. So if you are out there doing what you're doing, whether you're established and you're trying to scale, but you're still a team of one, hire someone. Or if
Yeah.
you're at the beginning of your entrepreneurial, world, hire a coach or invest in an online course, but definitely invest in yourself.
I love that. That's beautiful. All right, perfect. And where can people find you on the internet? Are you on Instagram or Facebook or somewhere that people can find you?
Yes. So on Instagram, I am Hey Susan Elizabeth. And I am on Facebook all the time. And the website for our agency is Operations Dash Made Easy. But yeah, you'll definitely see me hanging out in either Facebook or Instagram a lot.
Okay, awesome. We'll put all the links in the show notes below so people can access you and find more about what you do and potentially work with you as well. So thank you so much, Susan, for joining us for today's show. This was so much fun. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I geek out on talking about what I do. So it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.